Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Joining me today is someone who's been intentionally evolving how he operates as a loan officer, focusing on efficiency, consistency, and building smarter processes while continuing to grow his production. He brings a practical, grounded perspective shaped by real experience, experimentation, and a strong commitment to improving both systems and relationships. Matt Vazaldua, welcome to the Lowdown.
Hey, how's it going, Connor? Appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm excited to have this conversation. I know anyone listening is going to gain a ton of value from it because you just bring a lot of experience to the table. And, I like to just jump right in, skip the origin story stuff, right? And because you've been doing this long enough, and we all know no one gets into this business on purpose. But you mentioned sort of early on in your success coming from community involvement. And I think that's really important to highlight. You just through networking and being in places like the gym, like intertwining life and business together. Like, how did those experiences influence how you think about relationship building now?
Well, I feel like before I was a lender, I was a CrossFit gym owner. So, I did that for about 10 years. So for me, when I say like the community involvement, I think, that business, led to some of my early success where, because I would meet with people from the community, I trained them, an hour a day, 4 or 5 times a week at times. So we had a very, tight knit community. And, I eventually got into lending. I ended up getting into lending because I was doing a flip. So I come into a little bit of money and, I did a flip and, I thought I did all my homework. I read the Flipping for Dummies. I went to a Scott Yancey weekend training and, how to avoid, these common mistakes, for flipping. And, first property I found, it should have been a home run shot, right? I bought it for 79,000, put about 30 into it. Should have sold it for 150, a little bit more actually. I ended up selling for about 155. When I got to the closing table, with the type of lending I had done, which it was hard money, it's not as, regulated as our loans, right? But again, I learned the hard way and, I had to give up all this unpaid interest that I wasn't aware of and didn't sit well with me, man. So then, I do have a finance background and, I went and got on old Google at the time and, how do I become a mortgage broker? Searched that up, took my test and, I just, pride myself on, helping people out from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I've heard this concept of like the third place, right? You've got three places in life that you frequent. There's home, of course, there's the office, and for some people that's the same place. But then there's this third place where you're out regularly. It could be church, it could be, the gym, it could be somewhere that you just go for trivia night once a week, right? It's that place where you're at frequently, and in that environment is where you can build like that networking relationship. It could be your kids' soccer games for whatever. So anyway, I love that you found a way to have that third place be, a place where you're building new connections. And
Yeah.
great story about the homeland, the hard money
Yeah,
lending.
no, for sure. I always tell that to some of the, LOs on the team as well. Like, for me, even outside, once I ended up selling the CrossFit gym, about 2 years ago, I got really into Muay Thai. So I got really into Muay Thai and, probably a little too old for it these days. I ended up tearing my bicep and everything, but hey, I got hooked on it. And again, that was another network where I met people there literally within like my first 6 months of Muay Thai. I ended up getting 5 deals from that class. We're just in that type of industry. You know what I mean? Everyone's got to know what you're doing, and you build that relationship with people, and you're trusted. It makes the job a lot easier on you.
Yeah, man. Well, remind me not to be in a dark alley with you. Man, that is some combat
Well,
right there,
maybe you do
man.
need to
I
be with
love
me,
that.
right? Maybe
What's
you do need
that?
to be with me, though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now you've talked about just kind of building through consistent sales activity and just strong relationships. What are some of the experience that shaped just how you're like approaching growth today? Is it any different? Are you doing anything that's evolved over that time into new activities?
I mean, I would say some of the stuff are similar activities where, I mean, as far as, being consistent with getting out there, making calls, things like that, right? But for me, it's kind of funny. Like, I feel like I've kind of always kind of been in sales. Like one of my first jobs, I worked with a buddy of mine and his family, and they do like light fixtures, right? So I would go out to the homes, when they were like being framed up, and I'd leave some flyers, try and connect with the builder, and like I was trying to get them to sell light fixtures, buy the light fixtures for that home, right? And then when I first got into lending, I mean, it was kind of one of those, I didn't have a lot of guidance, to be honest. So I was kind of just learning as I go, literally learning as I went. Some of the support I had at the time, I mean, wasn't the best, but they were very old schools, a mom and pop shop, literally. And, their advice to going to get business was, hey, go leave a business card, leave a couple candies at that spec house. They're going to call you, right? And here I am, going to every single spec house, just leaving some candies, on my business card. Well, that wasn't going to work, right? I needed to actually meet people, talk to them. So again, man, for me, it was just, looking for opportunities, right? One of the things I would do early on, and I guess I still carry that over today. Like we have these magazines here locally where they're called the Source magazines. And that kind of just shows you, a couple agents in the area or builders where these new subdivisions are going out. So I'd go out, to the subdivision, probably on a Thursday or a Friday. I'd see who had like the specs going on, and I try to give value, right, to the builder. And I'd be like, hey, man, would you mind if I just post up here this weekend and work an open house? If I approve anybody, this is what I got, this is what I can offer. And who knows, at the time, social media was kind of, up and coming, whatever kind of little following I had, just like, hey, I'll promote you as best as I can, and hopefully just try and get some activity, right? But I did that for so long, never took a Saturday off, and eventually, again, I think we're in one of those industries where like you definitely get what you put into it, and eventually, like I never got anything from those open houses. To be honest, I did it for like 6 months straight, and it's a beautiful subdivision. I can't believe I still never closed a home there, but it led to other people taking notice. They're like, man, this guy's always working. Let's give him a shot. So it led to other doors.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, when you're out hustling, you may not get that immediate result, but you're sending a message to the community that you're a hustler, you work your butt off, right? And so whether or not it's an immediate return on investment, there is a signal being sent to the realtor community, the builder community, anyone involved that Matt's out here every weekend. He's consistent. If there's a loan that's going haywire, or if there's something and I need someone I can count on. Matt's someone that seems like I can count on that guy. So I love the evolution of sort of your prospecting as well, just in terms of like candy and cards to now just sort of being the value provider and sort of putting yourself out there. I think that's really important. Like as a career grows, things change. Are you doing anything differently today, or like what does prospecting look like for you now?
Well, I still go drop off candies, that's still a thing, but it's got to be a holiday, like we just went out and dropped off things for Valentine's. But no, well, one thing we do is one thing that really changed here recently is, being consistent with, prospecting, right? Making sure I'm still reaching out to new realtors and things like that. Because man, it's very easy to get caught up in all the busy work. We're not doing, the money making things right, and making sure that we are still contacting these new agents, and doing that. So now it's kind of like a non-negotiable with the team right now. We're doing our power hour. So that power hour, we're just time blocking, phones down. Obviously, I mean, anything urgent should have already been done before noon. So that should have already been passed. We typically do this around 2 or 3 o'clock. And, the power hour, we're doing it twice a week right now. But basically, it's either going to be digging into my database and reaching out to past clients, anybody who may be pre-approved and they just kind of haven't found a home yet, or maybe somebody that I'm seeing that could potentially use a refinance. Or if not, then I say typically I'm doing that on Tuesdays, and right now my Thursday, it's all I'm just reaching out to new builders, new builders and new realtors, trying to schedule a meeting for the following week. Actually, I kind of got that from Dustin Owens with T-Lop. I love his little strategy, quick little script, how to reach out to realtors. And then, he even gives some good tips on, let them know you're available Tuesday, Thursday next week. get them on the calendar, and then literally it's crazy. I went like 8 for 8 last week, and I was
Oh
like,
man.
that was a win, man. I was like, man, I couldn't believe it. I was like, dude, I went 8 for 8. I'm used to usually get a couple no's or cancellations, and I was like, I guess I got a pretty stacked week. So
Yeah, man, that's phenomenal. Well, shout out Dustin Owen and T Lop. But you mentioned the database and kind of getting into that a little bit. Is that something you've always been intentional about, or is that something that's more kind of recent focus?
oh, that's definitely been recent. And again, I owe that to Dustin, listening in on his podcast. That's kind of one of my go-tos. I mean, I feel like they give a lot of great tips in there as well. Man, but yeah, I'm going to be brutally honest. I would not work my database as much as I should. And one thing that I made it a point, like typically, I do a follow up after closing and stuff like that. Just to make sure they know where they're making their payments. I remind them about the homestead, things like that. That I'm pretty consistent with. But as I'm not. I wasn't doing my 6 month check in as often, or my 1 year. Like, I'm just being completely honest. That stuff would get put on the back burner. And again, I'm focusing too much on like this new lead, what's coming in, what's hot, and I've been doing, but in the last 7 weeks, I've been very consistent with doing that. Oh man, the feedback's been amazing. Like, it's been great. Like, even just they're just appreciative of me following up, whether the 6 month and the 1 year for sure, even like some of the 1 years, because maybe about 2023 we're doing a lot of temp buy downs. So with some incentives that we had where it's like we would cover a buy down for the borrower, things like that. And then we'd structure some deals, or maybe they got concessions to do the rest. But a lot of those clients, they appreciate it, and they're like, hey, well, you know what, I mean, my buy down's almost coming up, so I'm definitely gonna get back with you on the refi, things like that. So, and it's also another good opportunity to ask for referral.
Yeah, great. I mean, salespeople in general, but especially in mortgage, they make it so hard on themselves, right?
Yeah.
It's always about the next lead. But you've got all these people that, you built a relationship with. They went through the whole process with you. They know the quality of work that you provide, and all their contact information's right there. And yet, it's we call them about the homestead, and then when's the next time we call? And are you finding like the buy down? That's a great reason to reach out, but what are some of your other reasons for calling? Because I think that's what most people struggle with is, okay, I've kind of run out of reasons to call. Are you just manufacturing any opportunities to reach out about? What are some of the things that you're calling your database about?
I mean, it just depends, depending on like what I'm reaching out to, right? Like again, I mentioned, people that were pre-approved. So those are people I'm just, contacting to see how, I can assist, if they have anything they're looking to get back into the market kind of thing. But one of the big reasons I use the database too is I'm a big birthday guy. So I call everybody on their birthday. I call everybody on their birthday. Now I'll do like the video text, which I do video text for almost everything as well. I think that helps a lot more than just shooting a text. I mean, and honestly, I just like it. I feel like I can explain it, and my point comes across better. So just video text all the way, and that's actually what I do when I'm doing that. And like, I ask them if they want to schedule a call for a consultation. Like 1 week out, I give them a call. Hey, send them a congratulations. I was like, I know you're probably at work right now, but hey, I just checking in. Want to follow up with you. If we need to schedule a call, we can. But the purpose is want to make sure you know where you're making your payment. Maybe sending you a first payment letter, or and let them know, about the junk mail they're going to be receiving. Let them know, hey, you are going to be getting a link from CMG where you can start doing your online payments. If you have any questions, we're definitely here to help. And then also, again, asking for the review. One of the things I did for the review too, I had my marketing team help out. I had them make me a little quick little QR code, something I can just kind of send out with, kind of looks like a little business card, and just send it out, click on it. Easy way to get reviews.
Yeah, I love that. Reviews are so essential, right? Have you seen an increase in the amount of reviews that you're getting from that, or has there been any difference there?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty consistent getting some good reviews. But one thing I do that I have been working on a little bit more is my Google reviews. Just because, like, man, when I move companies, I just I lose those, and it's unfortunate, right? And then I don't that part I'll never understand. I wish they could just come with us. 'Cause technically, I mean, I feel like we're a business within a
Your
business.
reviews,
Yeah, we earned them. Like, why not let us keep them? But yeah, so I've definitely lost a lot of Google reviews. Man, honestly, here recently, like again, that's something where we've thrown that in like to our power hour, where I just like, okay, I'm gonna work on reviews today, and I'll just contact people like and just ask for a review. Man, I'll ask anybody for a review. I asked my Uber driver for a review the other day. I mean, he asked
Smart,
me. He
man.
asked me for ones. I was like, all right, fair is fair.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean the Google reviews, there's so much power to that because it helps you land higher on the Google search. The more reviews you have, it gives instant credibility to you because yeah, that's what people are going to do. They get your name as a recommendation, whether it's from the agent, friend, or family member. They go straight to Google, type in your name, and see what other people say about you. It's the same thing we do about going to restaurants or watching a movie, all these things. And so other people's opinions matter. And it's great that you are collecting those because, I mean, that's going to pay off big time in the future. Now, I'm just going to pivot a little bit to more like tactical, structural kind of things because you've been working on sort of creating more structure around your workflow, especially when setting clear expectations with borrowers about next steps. Like, what does your ideal client process look like from contact or contract to close?
Cool. So yeah, the ideal situation for me is like typically what I tell my referral partners is um, they usually text me a lead over, and I always recommend that we start the group chat. I recommend the group chat because I want them to see the communication as well. I want them to know that hey, they're being reached out to right away. Typically, I have like, um, or if not, or if they send me a lead, I have like saved scripts already. I'll have a saved text script for my main realtors, right? If not, I just kind of edit the name when I'm sending it out. But I save that. So if not, we have the text script, or they do a group chat. They introduce me. I follow up with them. I want to get them scheduled for a brief consultation call, where it's just going to be a brief intro call where I want to set the expectation for what's going to happen next, which is the application, right? I want to answer some of, the obstacles they might see on the application because, if I just send the link, what's going to end up happening, they're going to call me in 10, 15 minutes, be like, hey, what do I put for the down payment, or what do I do here? And then it's like, I let them all know, like, I'm not going to hold them to whatever they put in there. We are going to be able to discuss the application during our full consult. But when I'm take the lead call, I'm already kind of doing some pre-screening. I'm asking questions. I usually kind of start with, do you currently own any properties, or is this your first time applying for a mortgage? Just so I kind of know what level they're at, right? If they're just completely new to this, first time they've been renting, or maybe they're a little bit more seasoned and they've purchased a couple more homes. And then I kind of walk them through as next steps. I tell them, like, hey, as I'm screening, I go into like some credit just so I get an idea what their scores are or any concerns. Then I'll jump into employment. And then I was like, lastly, we just kind of see if you got enough funds for the purchase of this home. And I let them know once the application is received. I do let them know again, hey, you're not quite done once you hit submit, because 9 out of 10 times I get a applicant who's going to say, hey, I finished everything, but they didn't submit any documentation. So I always let them know you're not done until you get me the docs. Most important, I just need income. And then once we get that, I let them know that the next step from there, typically, my goal is to get them in a consultation with me within 24 to 48 hours. So once I receive the application, I want to be meeting them either in person or on a Teams call. That's the only way I do it. Better be working on some random oil field or something that you just don't have access, where it'll be a phone call, because that's the only way I'll do it. Again, I want them to see me. I want them to feel comfortable with me, and I just feel like the conversion rate is way higher when we actually do that. Because I mean, it's real easy just to take a call as someone who's chasing rates, but I do take a deeper dive in that consultation, right? We are going to talk strategy. We are going to let them know, establish a budget. Kind of see what their needs are. That way, when they get out with my referral partner, we already have an idea what direction we're going in, and we've definitely established a budget. Because man, we all know how it can be sometimes. Sometimes clients will see something online, and they may not be including taxes or insurance something, and they're telling their agent, hey, I want a $400,000 house, but they have a $250,000 budget. So it's just and I do take my time on that consult, because I mean, honestly, I want to overeducate on that consultation, because I don't even want to open the door for them to even think they have to go anywhere else. I want everything to be answered there. I want them to feel comfortable, and I just want them to be impressed, literally, because why would you want to go anywhere else if, So that consultation to me, and I tell everybody on my team on that, it's like, guys, the consultation is when the deal's won, I think. In my
Yeah.
opinion, it what you do here in this consult, the deal's won. You know, you give it your best here. There's no need for them to shop you around. Not going to say
Yeah,
they
well, I
won't. Every once in a while, you get that one client who, hey, this 45 minutes just meant nothing to them, and they're going to hop on over. But yeah, but other than that, I think a lot of people appreciate it.
yeah, well, two call outs there are one, you're very intentional about making sure that they're seeing you and you're seeing them in that consult, whether it's in the in-person meeting or over a Zoom or a Teams or something to that effect. I think that's come up a lot recently in my conversations with other top producing loan officers, and it's something that we got into a habit, I think, as an industry of just send them the link, get them to the online application. And there's a disconnect that happens there. But then, two, you also said to take your time with that call. And I think that's just a real important part of it, too. You've got a captive audience. They're there
Yep.
in front of you. You guys are, now it's scheduled, it's on the calendar, and now you actually have time to really develop that like relationship and get them comfortable with the person that's going to be doing their loan, right? And so a 5 minute consult to me seems like a waste of time versus a 30 minute where you really get an opportunity to get to know the person on the other side, and them you as well. So I'm just curious, like how long are your typical consultation call?
Usually about 30 minutes. Usually about 30. That's a good average, 30 minutes. We can kind of get it done 30. Some do take a little bit longer. It just kind of depends, right? Because it might be a couple more scenarios that we're kind of going over at the time, but or maybe just really depends on the client. But usually 30 is sufficient. I try and do it all within 30 minutes because yes, I do want to educate and take my time, but I also don't want to drag it out too much to just torture for them, like they're taking another class or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. So, Matt, as you sort of look into the future and just kind of continuing to grow and mature as an originator and evolve, like what are some of the things that you're focused on right now to implement maybe better systems or just sort of your version of growth? What does that look like?
For me, it's just consistency, being consistent in what we do day to day. I think if you talk to any top producer or anybody who's been successful at anything, like the common denominator is going to be consistency and discipline, like not only at your daily activities, like in the office, for me, it's also things what I do outside of the office, you know what I mean? To prep me for this, as far as consistency, like in the office, it is making sure like what we're doing right now, sticking to our power hour, sticking to, hey, asking for that review, calling that listing agent, asking them for a review at closing, giving them, what, an offer goes out. I call the listing agent, give them some reassurance on this one, let them know, hey, this one's been underwritten, or maybe this one clean file, give them a little bit of a rundown on the applicant, try and, help our chances there of getting that deal and making it non-negotiable to continue to reach out to new people weekly is what I'm doing at the moment, which like I said, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of got away from that, and and it wasn't as consistent. It'd be kind of one of those, all right, like I'm done with all my busy work. Maybe let's throw this on there today. But it's just trying to stick to this time blocking to say, I know it's a very difficult thing to do sometimes in our industry because I mean, you never know when you got to go put out a fire or like you get this urgent lead or hey, you got a rescue file, they need this now, like literally right before we got on this, I had a client reach out to me and tried wrapping it up as quickly as I could. Uh, literally, it can be like that at times. So, but right now, just if we can stay consistent and block this 1 hour to do these little things, I think that goes a long way in your business. No doubt, because I mean, it's to me, it's some of the little things for sure. Like I mentioned earlier, we're doing the check-ins and continued prospecting. Reaching your database and continue to prospect.
Well, and then as we sort of wrap up here, is there a question I didn't ask, or is there any advice that you'd like to share with just the audience about, other anything you'd like to put out there? This is your opportunity to just say whatever you want.
I mean, I guess for me, I guess one thing we didn't touch up on was, again, some of the things that we do outside of the office that, help us perform better in here. Actually, like, it was a thing that we talked about at our power summit that we just had earlier this month. But, Chris George, he mentioned, taking care of your body, things like that. You know what I mean? The things you do. And for me, I definitely feel like, as you know, the getting older in age, man, you know, there are a couple things where I feel like I'm a desk athlete now, right? So I do feel like for me to perform better here, it does require for me to be making sure I'm doing the proper things outside of training is a big, um, part of my daily routines. And like for me, uh, if I'm eating good and if I'm training, I perform way better in here. You know, I definitely do. And you know, we're in a high stressful type of job at times. You know what I mean? And I feel like, we got to be sharp. We got to be with numbers. We got to be, we got to deal with clients' emotions. You know, we got to deal with numbers. So it can be a lot. You know what I mean? So if you're not, taking care of yourself out there, man, I think you're going to feel it in here. You know, and it's just for me, that's one way how I feel like I perform better. And I just try and stick to that.
Well, man, I love that. That's a great bit of advice. And I just want to say thanks for being on the lowdown, man. It's been great hearing sort of your perspective on things in the business and what you're working on and kind of where you've been and where you are today. So just, Matt, thanks for being on the lowdown. I wish you nothing but the best in the future.
No, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you having me. Not gonna lie, I thought when I first got the text, I thought it was like a spam text or something. I didn't think it was real, and I had to look it up. And I was like, oh man, this is real. I was like, all right, let me call this guy back.
Yeah, hey, it's catching on out there nowadays. So we're almost to 500 downloads. We'll celebrate it when we get there. So
Man,
anyway,
this bad.
but
Somebody pranking me or something. But no, it's been great, man. I appreciate you having me.
yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.